The Media Project.
My partner, Ethan DeSoto, and I believe that sharing more equity in our work and in our investments not only provides more opportunity to our neighbors, it's also what democracy is all about. I'm Scott M. Graves, and if you desire the opportunity to own real estate in a cooperative environment, one with experts who understand property and what it means to build wealth for all, join us at smgravesassociates.com/epic to find out more about the Exponent Property Investment Cooperative, or EPIC LLC. Hey there, the Media Project fans. If you like today's episode of your favorite the Media Project podcast, perhaps you'll consider going to smgravesassociates.com/podcast. There, you can select your favorite podcast, click on your favorite episode page, and consider contributing to our Patreon, subscribing to your favorite podcast, and lastly, maybe you'd consider giving us a favorable review on iTunes. Any way you support us supports the great work we do at the Media Project. Thanks.
Excuse me, do you mind if I join you? Are you sure you don't mind? You're absolutely sure I'm Mr.
Five incredible young people with superpowers. And watching over them from Center Neptune, 7 Zark 7.
Hello and welcome to the Mental Suppository. I'm Bret Herholtz.
I'm Andrew Shanley.
I'm Brian Brown.
I'm Lisa Billings.
I'm Ainsley Waller.
And tonight we're going to be talking about all things fan. Just what things we love, what we love about it, and honestly, it's one of these things that if you're new to something or it's something you've loved for a long time, I mean, this is what we're gonna discuss. And for me, I mean, it's like the two things that when I was young, the two things that always kind of followed me were Doctor Who and Mystery Science Theater 3000. But I'll get to that later because I kind of want our guests to sort of talk about what they enjoy, either enjoyed when they were younger or stuff they kind of got into through, relaunches or reboots of the series. I mean, that's what we're going to be talking about tonight.
I would like to apologize to Lisa for going ahead of them in the announcement of our names because there was a slight pause and then I panicked and just assumed that I was fucking up. So
oh, don't worry about it,
Lisa.
Don't worry about
it. For me, I forgot what alphabetical order meant and couldn't go. So
don't worry about it.
A is for awesome. Just remember that.
That's good. We should all remember that.
Ainsley and Brian, why don't you guys go ahead and describe your fan interests and such?
Yeah, sure. So actually what you mentioned, those are both things that I enjoy as well. Mystery Science Theater and Doctor Who. Although I think my OG fandom has got to be Star Trek. I started out with the original series way back in the days, and I am still on top of it with Discovery. I love it. It's great. It's fantastic. Not every single piece of content that has ever come out of that fandom I love, but I embrace them all anyway. And I like the reboots. I think it's fun. It's great that it gets new people into things. So yeah, that's a big special fandom for me, I think.
Yeah, I it's weird because I knew that what this was going to be about and I didn't actually prepare for it in my brain in any way, shape, or form.
Neither did we. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, so it's like, what do I like? I don't know. I don't know what I like.
I like pickles.
Yeah. I'm becoming fans of this podcast. I think even when I was a really little kid, I had an interest, I mean, very young, I had an interest in things that like that nobody else knew anything about. I guess is a way to put it. Like, I remember being really obsessed actually with Doctor Who when I was very young, because Doctor Who didn't come on the television in the town that I lived. I saw Doctor Who because I grew up on an island, and I saw Doctor Who when there was a storm coming in from the north, and I could get TV in Charleston. So every time I saw Doctor Who, it was on a public broadcasting station in Charleston. It came in staticky, and I would get it. And that's me with the rabbit ears trying to like tune in. And
I remember those days. Oh yeah.
I'm old. And then
I'm older.
Yeah, I didn't have cable.
I prefer the word vintage.
Exactly. I'm retro, a retro human.
Oh.
And so I would always catch like, the Ark in Space, episode 4. and then I had no idea what the hell was going on. I had no context, and so it was really, really weird. And so there was lots of things like that, like Gatchaman, which got me into anime, was like a weird show, and I would talk to other kids about it, and they had no idea what I was talking about. Nobody knew what I was talking about with Doctor Who. And then of course, like there was like the sci-fi stuff, like Star Wars, Star Trek.
Yeah.
The Black Hole, I was a big fan of.
Oh, I love that movie.
Yeah, and so, but what's extended into is like, I still like things that are just like kind of obscure,
right,
outside of
quirky.
Yep.
Yeah, but that's really hard now with the internet.
Yeah.
Now, it's easy to find. It's not just hard, but it's like you can always find people that like the stuff that you do now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that's me.
Well, Lisa, we talked about you had gotten into Doctor Who with the new series, whereas I had gotten into the old series.
Yeah, so I would say I watched the first season of the new series when it came out. I was very excited about it because at that point I was, I'm total sci-fi nut. I would say I didn't start off as a kid. And for me, I don't know when Doctor Who was on television when I was little. I might be the youngest of the group.
Yes.
But so maybe it wasn't actually on, or it was maybe on reruns, but maybe not. So maybe I had kind of missed my window of watching it when I actually would have been old enough to watch it. And at that point, I got really obsessed with, well, I have to see the original. I'm always that person that I can't just watch the new stuff and be okay with it. And so I watched the original, and I don't think I've seen up past like the early 80s or so, but I've basically seen every episode that you can commercially watch at this point. There are some that have been lost to the sands of time at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are
but
there really?
At first you could just watch them on Amazon.
I have that story in a bit.
At first you could just watch them on Amazon, and then you could watch them, and then you had to pay extra for BritBox, which it used to not be part of Amazon. It was its own thing, and then it got bought out by Amazon. But I actually subscribed to BritBox specifically so I could continue to watch Doctor Who. It got me through grad school because I would just put it on and watch it while I would do paperwork and reading and studying. And I would just watch them back to back to back to back to back. And that kind of got me started actually on watching a lot of the old stuff as well. I ended up watching the whole original series of Battlestar Galactica.
That's good.
And I actually even watched, what was it, like the second season, but it was like weird and like a different time.
Oh, Galactica 1980, wasn't it?
I know.
Galactica 1980.
Yeah, so I watched that as well. That was weird. I'm not going to say it was good, but it was definitely interesting.
Yep.
And it was interesting because I then tried to watch the modern series because I never did watch that when it was on. And I absolutely hated it. I might get attacked for that, but that was not my thing. But the original I could definitely watch. Although one of the things that I noticed watching it kind of through a modern lens with both Doctor Who and Battlestar, how sexist they are. They're so, I mean, without even trying, they're just so sexist. And it doesn't mean that I don't love them for their sci-fi elements,
Yep.
but oh my God. I
It was
mean,
definitely a product of the time. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely
Yeah.
was.
and it's interesting because, you know, I watched Star Trek Next Generation when it came out. And probably I watched bits and pieces of the original series, and I watched the movies when I was a kid in the 80s. But those are so much less sexist. Like Star Trek is so much more equal footing, people of different races or alien races, all kind of even out. And it just was not, it did not feel like that in Doctor Who especially, but definitely in Battlestar Galactica as well. And that one came out later, much later than Doctor Who.
Yeah, it was right after Star Wars came out.
Yeah.
How about that disco scene in Buck Rogers, though?
Oh gosh.
I love that. That's one of my favorite.
Dude,
I do not remember that. Buck
I have the
Rogers.
whole series on DVD.
BD.
I'm serious.
You want to dance? Fuck.
Okay, I guess this leads up into me. Obviously, I'm a uber nerd. I like to consider myself that. Definitely grew up in probably one of the best generations there was, because Star Wars came out. I was taken to the drive-in, and that was pretty much it. And ever since then, it's just been anything with spaceships. And I mean anything with spaceships. I mean, Buck Rogers, Space 1999, Forbidden Planet, Star Trek, Star Wars, anything and everything that had a laser gun, spaceship, or whatever else included with that, I would want to watch as a kid. And, you know, even if it was terrible, I didn't care. Like, you know, Jason from Star Command. I'd watch that. I don't care. It was terrible, but hey, it's got Sid Haig in it. But, you know, it certainly is a dichotomy. It's very interesting now how much all the things, because obviously growing up in high school wasn't popular. I wasn't the popular kid in high school because, you know, of all the stuff I was into. But, you know,
raise your hand if you were the popular child growing up. In your
Just kidding.
I'm gonna say.
That's sad.
nobody's-
Like in our schools, you mean?
my
Yeah,
hand actually
you-
went through the floor when you said that.
No, just
I had a brief moment of popularity my senior year after being finally kicked out of all the all boys Catholic military school my parents told me to send me to.
Okay, that's cool.
Oh, that's
and then
that right
going
there.
to- and then going
It
to
gives you
public
street
school
cred,
where
though.
I did drama, and I was popular because I was a good actor, and the
Mhm.
plays we did were funny. So, but not really popular, like that funny drama kid popular.
Oh
you know?
yeah, I mean, I was drama kid popular. That's
Yeah.
different though. Like,
it's
Me
still
too.
it's like as popular as a nerd could possibly. be.
Right.
I was AV club popular. I was the AV guy.
okay, that's
So-
cool. So like, yeah, the kids probably were
Like-
psyched. They were like, oh, we don't have to listen to the teacher because he's here, and like we're gonna watch a movie or something.
You're wheeling
Well,
the car.
I was
around.
editor of my yearbook, and so I put all the non-popular kids in most of the photos and left off all the popular kids. It was my
I
little
actually-
Good for
revenge.
you.
Oh, that's awesome.
That was a taste of the future for him,
The
wasn't it?
control of the media was mine. The my experience, of course, was that I actually did like skits. I was actually we did like a TV show every month, and so every single month I would do like skits and do parodies of shows. I did a Star Trek parody called Star Wreck, and I did like a James Bond parody called James Bomb. I did commercial parodies. And one of the commercial parodies I did was I actually took my dad's cordless like handheld screwdriver and put a fork in it, and I would eat spaghetti on this thing. I just like the amazing drill fork. And then like my mother actually found 1 year later that was actually a battery powered drill fork, and I was like, oh son of a bitch, I should have patented that son of a thing.
Oh, you would have been a rich man by now,
I know, no kidding. All the Amazon money could have been mine.
living it up in Palm Springs.
I invented onion goggles, but
I know, right?
Somebody
Everybody
else
needs
did.
onion goggles. No, but I had the exact same situation. I was the AV. I was like Saturday Night Live. That was me in high school. So that was what I was popular for. You know. Don't know why I never went to New York though.
SNL was really interesting. Like I got to watch it. I mean, when I was really young and my dad would stay and watch it sometimes, and he would always let me. He would never send me, but he didn't care. And so this idea that there was a whole world of like late night television
Oh my
that I'd
gosh.
never been exposed to was just captivating, and I was really obsessed with it. Like
Saturday Night Live.
I think that's how I got introduced to Monty Python's Flying Circus, is because
Oh.
my dad would watch it. It was 11 o'clock at night on PBS, Channel 2, WGBH, Channel 2 Boston, up here in Massachusetts. And my parents' room was actually adjacent to our room when I was growing up. They ended up moving us into the basement later on, but it was one of these things. He would have the television on in his room around 11 o'clock at night, and I'd be asleep. And I would hear all these skits through osmosis. So I would be repeating it the next day, and that was how I got into Monty Python.
You know
Which
what,
is-
Brett? That is so funny because that's how I got Python too, almost exactly. There was a
Really?
television in the next room to my bedroom, and I would hear my parents screaming, laughing, and I had to know why, and it would be some Python skit.
And the one
Yeah.
I actually first remember was the one. It's like, everyone to the lifeboats, women, children, spacemen, Red Indian, and the sort of idealized Flemish Renaissance man. You look more like a Flemish merchant. It is not a Flemish merchant. It's the ideal Renaissance man.
Nobody expects the Spanish
That
Inquisition.
was the first one I remember,
great one.
because they ended
So
up having
good.
the clips from the A Night to Remember interspliced into the episode.
Since we're talking about Monty Python here, something that I would really like to do to a comic convention is just cosplay Bicycle Repairman. See if anybody gets it.
Oh, nobody would, but I think it would be great.
Because like the skit, I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but okay, so the skit is basically the whole world, everyone's a superhero.
Except this one
Like,
guy who's
everybody's
Bicycle
dressed
Repairman.
up as Superman. Like everybody's wearing a Superman costume, and somebody's riding their bike, and he falls over, and the bike breaks. He's like, oh my God, the bike is broken. What are we going to do? And like
Well, I
the
think
guy,
they're all doing like these really bad American accents, which after Dick Van Dyke, we kind of deserve it.
yeah, I think
They're all like-
we deserve it.
Yeah,
we deserve it so
and they're
hard.
like, if
know.
only Bicycle Repairman was here.
And so he just goes into a telephone booth, and he's like wearing overalls and a hat. He's got his toolbox, and he rides his bike over, and he starts screwing the bike. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, look how he's using that wrench over there!" And like it's like turning the wrench, and he goes wrench, turn, like like the Batman like pop-ups. It was so funny.
That
And,
was
like,
good.
Good.
That was a good cut. That was a good skit. I swear, that's the one. I'd love to see if anybody would get that.
I would
We
do
might
it
at
anyways.
DragonCon.
Oh, really?
Really?
Yeah, people
That's
love
awesome.
to do obscure cosplay.
Yeah.
That's another topic, but yeah.
Although
What?
I feel like 1 people out of 10,000 get my cosplay that I do every year at DragonCon. I don't think it's that obscure, and it's the last criminally insane Andorian from Whom the Gods Destroy.
Oh my God.
You got it.
Andorian with a giant red feather boa, and he's wearing like pajama pants.
That's great.
And I love walking around with a cocktail and being like, hey.
My most obscure cosplay was when I got dressed up like, and I still have this uniform. I got dressed up like Sean Connery from Outland, and I went to a convention, and everybody thought I was a security guard.
Yeah, that's tough.
I mean, everybody thought it was like, hey, where's the bathroom? And I'm like, I don't that way. I didn't know,
Yeah.
but I mean, that was tough.
Well, I think I can answer Lisa's question earlier about, when Doctor Who was played up here, because that's when I remember seeing it when I was younger. It was always, I think it was like Wednesday nights at 7 on Channel 2. And I started out watching it because it terrified me as a kid. The
Yep.
episodes actually, Tom Baker terrified me. With his
scary.
It was
And,
the white man fro that he had.
Well, it was 2 episodes I remember. The one it was this episode, City of Death, which had Julian Glover as the villain in it. And there's this one scene where he pulls off his face, and underneath is this like squiggly looking alien with like one eye, and it just faces the camera. And as a kid, that scared the hell out of me. And the other one was actually just Tom Baker, at the end of Invasion of Time, looking at the camera and laughing because I thought the Doctor was evil.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it was like out of that terror, I actually started getting then I started, getting intrigued by the series. And by the time I think Peter Davison, the next Doctor, came along, I I suddenly could start watching it. But I always went back to like the Tom Baker episodes because that was the one that always interested me.
You know, I've actually been watching the classic Doctor Who's on Pluto TV. I don't know if anybody has that, but you can watch the classic episodes, and I really think it's a testament to just how much they did with as little as they had. And, you know, I always say the best special effect is a good story and great characters and people who give it their all. And as cheesy as those...
I think the closest thing we have to America to the quality of the special effects, and when I say that, I say it loosely, was the original Dark Shadows series. I mean, that was the only other one I could think of that.
I was actually thinking that who was going to mention that.
It was like a series that was done on a shoestring budgets where the actors and actresses are just acting their hearts out for these lines for the series, and you have these great actors like the one who played Elizabeth Stoddard just stumbling over her lines, having to like learn them in the last minute, and it's amazing, and they're doing this this is not just like a once a week series. These shows are going out every single day. But Dark Shadows was actually a series I knew about when I was younger, but I didn't get into it till much later with like the video and DVD releases.
Yeah.
So I watched a lot of it. I worked at Starship Video in Worcester and Auburn.
Oh, lucky you.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you know where that is, because that's special to my heart. I'm still in contact with the old owner, Rob Newton.
Oh, nice.
He lives up on the North Shore now. So I worked there until it closed for about a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up, I was one of the managers at the end because I just stuck around and didn't leave. But we had the whole series on TV. Yeah, wow. I mean, that working there actually really changed me, because we really took pride in liking weird things. Whoever liked whatever, we would kind of go with it. And so I started getting into anime at that point. I started getting into all sorts of things that I wouldn't necessarily normally get into. And I really started embracing the things that I naturally like. Mm-hmm. I love time travel movies, no matter how dumb or weird or terrible they are, or series. Time travel, terrible action movies, love terrible action movies. James Bond, obsessed with James Bond. And I didn't really embrace that growing up, even though I kind of secretly went to go see James Bond when they came out with them in the theater. But none of my friends were into that stuff, because I mostly was friends with, girls who wanted to go see Titanic or, whatever. And I was like, well, but Michelle Yeoh is in James Bond. Come on.
But you were an undercover nerd, essentially.
I mean, I think with movies, yeah. Totally. I mean, other stuff, no. I mean, I was a theater nerd, Nice. Musicals are in my heart so deeply, But with movies, I think I was more of an undercover nerd, because it was also hard to get your hands on things.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, on our honeymoon, we actually snuck around to the Carey Mansion where they filmed the exteriors for Collinwood in the Dark Shadow series. We somehow.
Oh, that's fabulous.
Now that's romantic there.
Well, it's one of these things. Romantic. We couldn't have gotten onto the lawn because there was a big beware of dog sign. But we were able to take our camera and sneak it through the gate and take a picture.
So good.
Ainsley and I went there too.
Yeah,
really?
we weren't able to go inside, but we saw the outside, and it's fantastic.
And
it looks just like the what's that?
It was also on our honeymoon.
Oh,
yeah,
weird.
when we were
Really?
driving up to Woodstock to go to the our mini moon.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was 2000. I think we went it was 2011. Yeah, 10 years ago. We just said, the Dark Shadows mansion is somewhere around here. So I think I don't know if we put it into the GPS or something like that, and we searched around for it. We found it, and so we just snapped a picture, and it looks like you see it in the series. Yeah. It's just such a amazing looking building. It's funny to think they took pictures from different corners of the world to put together this show that supposedly takes place in Maine.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it's funny though what you were saying too about this this like level of fandom where you would be on your honeymoon and take a detour to go take pictures of the Dark Shadows. You know, we all obviously have this level in us somewhere.
Yeah.
But that there have been points where I felt, or I'm sure a lot of us have felt like you have to be undercover about it in certain times or places, maybe some less or more than others. You know, like it's not cool in certain times or places, or
you don't want anybody to call you a freak or nothing, you know.
That's right. Or you don't feel welcome. Like in some cases, like people are being gatekeepy and like, oh well, you're not a real fan about this or a real fan about that.
Yeah.
Well,
So then you just are like, I don't want to talk about it, you know.
There's two levels. There's like the level of the people who are like, oh yeah, I think I've seen Star Trek. That's the one with like the bald guy, right? Like there's those people, right? And then you're just like, okay, I can't even start with you. And then there's the people that are like, excuse me, but did you know that the continuity flow between Star Trek Enterprise and Star Trek The Next Generation is not really there? And you're like, okay, I was just watching it. Like, I can't.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing at that.
Yeah.
No, I mean, there's both ways.
Yeah.
And so either way,
say,
I don't think I ever really fit in, even though I'm not quite caught up with Discovery, but I've seen every single episode of Star Trek.
I remember
all of them.
Going back to Star Trek. I remember I went to it was like, I think it was one of Super Mega Fests that they had in Marlborough, and I just dropped my daughters and my wife off at the door. I was dressed up as Captain Picard, and I'm walking to the convention center, and there's a girl right behind me, and she's dressed up like Black Widow from the Avengers, totally head to toe, 100% authentic looking cosplay. And there are these two guys who are totally like macking on her, like going, "Hey, so what are you into?" And she's like, "Well, I'm dressed up like Black Widow, you know, from the Avengers." They're like, "Oh, you must really like the Avengers." And of course, me being dressed up as Captain Picard, I just did this, the Captain Picard meme, and like, you know, she saw me do that, and she's laughing her ass off. And it's like it was like that instant connection between two nerds, and we're like, yeah, these guys don't know what the hell they're talking about. So we're walking along, we're just having a good laugh at it. It's like, I'm really into Star Wars, you know.
Right.
That's such a funny thing too, because I did used to live in fear of like the Uberner that like you're calling yourself, but like obviously you're an awesome guy and like super
Thank
nice.
I'm not convinced.
The judgmental Uber fan.
The mental Uber fan. But I don't fear that anymore. I've become like I've gotten to be an old feeble person, and I'm like, you know what? I've been watching Star Trek since 19 and y'all can suck it, and I know plenty of what there is to know. I can talk about it till till the cows come home about this, that, and the other. And I might have my own set of details that I like that you might not be interested in. Maybe you're about the tech, and maybe I'm about the wigs or whatever, the storylines. But we can all enjoy it together.
Well, I think there's always been that perception of fans. Like, remember the Saturday Night Live sketch of William Shatner, where the fans were all asking him questions about what was the combination of the safe in this episode and blah, blah, blah. And he just finally says, "Have you guys even kissed a girl?" You know, like that kind of thing. And like, you know,
It's a TV show.
it's a TV show.
It's not real.
It's not real. Come on. And then he's just like, that was just me doing Kirk, the bad Kirk from Mirror Mirror. You know, like.
That's the whole premise of Galaxy Quest and why Galaxy Quest hits such a sweet spot. I mean, it's just,
I love that
movie is just on point for everything.
That's such a great film.
I think that's always the thing that's kind of bothered me about some fandom is the way they kind of look down on people who may not know everything about the series or know every small minute detail. And I know I've being a Doctor Who fan, there's been a lot of fans out there who have gotten on fans who may not be. It's like even fans who were like back in '96. I knew somebody who liked Paul McGann as the Doctor, and they're like, well. You don't really know much about the classic series, so obviously you're not a fan. I think that's just bullshit, personally.
I think that leads right into the issue of the entitlement that we see a lot of people having. You know, myself personally, personally, like if something isn't my ball of wax, I don't buy it, you know. But at the same time, I'm not going to get so upset by saying they've completely ruined everything. And like,
They've destroyed my
they
childhood.
destroyed it all. I just remember, and obviously this is about Star Wars, but I remember when everybody was on Lucas's case about the prequels, and there were documentaries like The People versus George Lucas back in like 2010.
Oh, I saw that.
And
yeah.
Every fan in the world was like, oh, he's ruining our childhood. He's destroyed everything, blah, blah, blah. And then when Disney bought it, everybody was like cheering it on, like, yay, Disney's bought it. They're going to fix everything. And then they weren't happy with that. And now here we are again saying George Lucas has to come back and fix it all. Like,
right. Because you can't recapture 1983.
No.
I think that's like the whole thing.
And we watched the prequels as adults.
Yeah.
Or near adults. I mean, I don't remember when they actually come out.
It started in '99 because I think I was just graduating college then, and I'm
okay.
not too.
Yeah, so
I'm not.
So basically, we were adults.
Yeah,
we were adults.
But it was interesting because I was just reading something about two parents that were really big Star Wars fans, and about how they let their like 6-year-old get into the Star Wars universe, and it was basically about the order in which they had them watch the movies, which. I mean, whatever, you can get into whatever. But they said they did have their child watch The Phantom Menace. And they said watching it through a child's eyes was completely different. Because basically all of the spots that you cringe at, the little kid is cracking up because that's what it was geared for. It was geared for little kids.
It's funny
you
you
mentioned Ewoks.
Yeah.
But we saw Ewoks when we were little.
Yep.
Now we weren't full grown adults. So I mean, I like the Ewoks.
Mm-hmm.
And even as an adult now, are they a little annoying? Maybe, but for me, it feels sentimental and sweet and lovely. And I think
that's
that
the
a
thing.
little kid watching Jar Jar, yes, it's slightly offensive, and that's kind of a whole nother thing. But I think watching it through a kid's eye, it's really different.
Yeah.
And that's what it tried to lighten the mood with lots of heavy political environments, having, with scenes in the Senate and him leaving his mother, which is very serious, with some comedy and some lightness.
Mm-hmm.
And you can like that movie or not. I personally hate the actor that played Anakin so much. I don't.
Child?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the director. I don't hate him.
Yeah. We should
the
notice
discrepancy between him and then the second movie. It just messes with my head, and I just think it's weird and uncomfortable.
I think especially the prequels suffered from bad direction.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
They did.
But the other thing is, and
Hayden Christensen is a wonderful actor, just not in those movies.
Yeah, I think I completely agree. I saw him in a movie called Shattered Glass, and he was perfect in that movie. And
Life is a House.
That's another good one.
Oh my God, he's amazing in that movie.
But the problem is that when Lucas was making the original trilogy, he was dealing with where he had to compromise with a lot of people to get that trilogy made. He had to work with people, and he had to work with editors, he had to work with costume people, he had to work with a lot of different people. He had to compromise a lot of his vision to get it on screen. And so when he did the first movie and then the second movie and the third movie, that's when he started really having more power to control things. By the time he did the prequels, the man had nobody around him that would tell him no. And I think that
be the voice of reason.
That lack of criticism, that lack of outside direction really kind of hurt the direction that those prequels were in. Not to say that the actors are bad, not to say the effects are bad, not to say that the premise is bad, but the way it was done was just it just wasn't the same. So
yeah, I fully agree with that. And it's so funny too, because people talk about how great The Mandalorian is versus some of the Abrams films and all that kind of thing. Well, I get in a lot of discussions with other Star Wars fans of mine about they kind of have come to the conclusion that the latest, most recent 3 films suffered from being created by a committee. But I think there's such a fine line, and Brian and I both work in an industry where we have to do creative collaboration all day long, stuck in a
Yep.
room with people. We're in advertising, and
Okay.
you're like with 6 to 12 people, and you have a big client, you have a big company who's telling you what to do. And sometimes that collaboration can be, like you're saying, a real bonus, because when you have someone who's an ego, or they're going too obsessed with one thing, you have other people around you who are going to say, wait a minute, you just need to like pull it back, think about something else, get another perspective. So that can be a bonus. But if you start doing it too much by committee, it does get diluted and the creative vision can go away. So I think it's harder than people think to like find that sweet spot.
Right.
I think the other thing too is that back in 76, 75, when he was making this, they were hungry. They were hungry. They weren't proven. The effects weren't proven. The story wasn't proven. No one had done anything like that before. So everybody was really like, we got to give this 100%, or this thing is going to fail.
But then again, a lot of people didn't believe in his vision that were even on the, they had like old stock British cameramen who just, completely, kind of mocking him behind his back. And although you had Sir Alec Guinness, sort of standing in his corner, even though he didn't necessarily like the movie, he was the professional in it.
Absolutely. And the same thing happened with movies like Godfather. They thought that movie was going to be a bomb. Jaws, again, if you looked at what they planned on doing in the script and what ended up getting on screen, it was completely different, but it worked. And they had to there was a hard fight to get that movie filmed. But it's that out of the box thinking that sometimes you have to be in, where you're fighting the best you possibly can to get the vision that you need to achieve. And I think that's part of the problem with movies today, is that everything seems to be so manufactured and pasteurized that they're trying to reach this particular demographic at a particular level, and they're not thinking about the variations that can be thrown into a story. And I think that is where a lot of like properties like Star Wars and Star Trek even sort of start to fail, because they're not thinking about the more creative angles of using their story. Like, do you really need to have that? Do you have to like can't you be a little bit more creative with the way that you do your characters? Do they have to fit A, B, and C kind of demographic? That's the problem. They're doing it by charts,
Well, every nerd needs a really good editor that knows when to tell them to shut up, and and that the nerd listens to and trusts. I mean, look at Quentin Tarantino.
Perfect example.
His editor, and I forget her name. Do you remember her name?
No.
She just passed. She passed a few years ago. But that was it, the whole thing, because he's just like, yeah, and like it's gonna be like Fist of a Thousand Fury, and it's also gonna be like Snake Master Jones, and then Lee Van Cleef's Ninja Warrior, and like it's gonna come into this with this garage music. She's like, whoa, dude, calm down. Like we need to, and like that works because he can be out there into his crazy nerd hole, and she can pull him back in. And I think
okay, so was she around for From Dusk Till Dawn, or did she like take a coffee break? I don't know.
From Dusk Till Dawn wasn't just Tarantino.
I mean, that was more of a That was more of a Robert Rodriguez movie.
And I have a special place in my heart for that movie, to be honest.
It is a great.
I'm not.
We watched it.
You'd be cool,
we watched
man.
it over Halloween. It was pretty. It was really. It's funny with that movie because you could tell when one movie stops and the other.
It literally just the scene shifts and you're like, oh, we're watching a new movie now. All right.
Yeah.
I mean, that was kind of like a double feature.
That makes me think of the movie The Ruling Class with Peter O'Toole. Have any of you ever seen that movie?
No, I haven't.
No.
Oh, if you have to, it's like it's really ends up being like two different movies, because the whole first half of the movie, Peter O'Toole plays an English earl who thinks he's Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. And so it's all these things well, why do you think you're Christ? He goes, well, when I find I'm talking to him, I find I'm talking to myself. And those are a lot of it's a fantastic film, and when you said that, the two different films, it made me think of that. But actually, going back to what Lisa said about our perception about the prequels, it's funny because I've talked to a lot of younger fans, friends and who are people who actually love the prequels the way we love the original trilogy. So it's like it's all perception, and I think you might have mentioned it, Ainsley. Just it was when we saw them, or one of us mentioned it, that it was when we saw the movies, what age we were. Actually, Lisa was the one who mentioned the Ewoks, because Return of the Jedi was one of the first ones I remember seeing in the theaters, and I liked that film, and I liked the Ewoks at that time. And I still have a spot for that film growing up because that was like the first Star Wars film I saw in the theaters, even though
Don't
I
forget
think
the holiday special.
I'm trying to forget the holiday film.
This is
I
why
love
are
the
you here to
holiday
torture
special.
us?
I know.
Oh my gosh, the holidays.
I want to go. I want to go to the planet where B. Arthur.
I was just gonna say, why isn't there a
That's
B.
true.
Arthur figure? Where's the
know.
B. Arthur figure?
I
Singing
would
to a
buy
rat.
that
Where's
in a
the art-
heartbeat.
Where's the Art Carney figure?
I remember watching that on TV, ladies and gentlemen. Yes,
Stop
I
it
was.
right now. How dare you? This is torture.
But you know what?
You're
I
gonna make
will
Ainsley
say-
leave, Andrew. You
I'm just
stop
kidding.
it.
But of course, all right. So of course, before the pandemic hit, I was like teaching Sunday school in my local church. I haven't been to church for a year, so it sucks. But I remember having conversations with the kids and asking them, "Oh, are you going to see the new Star Wars movie?" And they're like, "Oh, no, I'm not into that." And I'm like, "Well, what are you into?" Because I would just ask them what the kids are into. They're more into Marvel. Marvel is their Star Wars.
Okay.
I mean,
I can
think
see that.
about it.
Yeah.
So
Um,
I have a 2-year-old, almost 3-year-old,
Mhm.
and granted, she doesn't watch Marvel movies because I'm not like a terrible parent. But she watches, some cartoons on Disney. Spider-Man. Obsessed with Spider-Man.
Spider-Man's a
and
great
Frozen,
character.
But
Yeah.
Spider-Man, like I bought her birthday presents and I got her Duplos with Spider-Man.
I think the two favorite characters I had as a kid were Spider-Man and Batman. Those were always the ones I always seemed to go back to.
I was a
You haven't had
Superman.
any
favorites with the little
cartoons that are appropriate
persons.
for Batman for her, so she hasn't watched it.
Probably the Super Friends.
Super Friends, totally.
Okay.
Yeah, Super Friends is probably.
All right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
he's a pretty dark hero.
Yeah.
I know, he really is.
you
But
can
I mean, that's
probably.
Adam West.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
That's
Adam
probably
West
already
Batman.
Batman. Yeah.
Super
I
Friends
watched
leans more
those
towards the Adam West
Every
Batman.
day after school. Every
Yep.
day after school, they
Yep.
played an hour of it. I don't know what station it was,
56.
First station.
maybe, but my brother and I watched. I have seen almost every episode. I mean, it was reruns at that point. From 30 years in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But Batman. I mean,
I did too. I was a huge fan of the Adam West Batman as a kid. Like,
loved it.
it was
Still
when I was
do.
watching TOS. That was the other one, along
Yep.
with all of the other strange
Star Trek and Batman.
Star Trek and
I
Batman.
watched the Batman, and I probably saw every episode too because it came on 2 episodes back to back.
right.
But I had, even as a kid, I had this, and I know Ainsley feels a bit of this too, like almost like anxiety or upsetness about like, well, it's less than the Batman, but more like Gilligan's Island, where like they keep messing up. And I can't,
Yeah.
it drives me crazy, and starts to make me feel bad. And for some
God
reason, the
damn it,
Batman
Gilligan.
show did
Can you
too.
imagine like the Christian Bale
Batman
Batman
stressed
ending
you
up
out?
on
Yeah.
Gilligan's Island?
Yeah.
Whoa.
That would be hilarious.
That would be hilarious. It would be insane. They wouldn't know.
Actually, you know what really worked really well about the first couple seasons of Batman was the fact, yes, it was campy. Yes, they played it, very for laughs, but the actors didn't. And I think that was the thing. They
Yeah.
played it Adam West played it very, very, those lines that were incredibly silly, like the girl falls into the bat reactor. And he says this line, it's like, "Oh, what a way to go." But the way he says it is just so earnestly. You just
Yeah.
you feel the lines, and I think
It's the dry delivery really sells it.
Yes.
The whole show.
Yeah,
Well,
it
I
still
mean,
has its
there's like
moments,
the movie where he's running around with a bomb on over his head. He's running to a bunch of nuns. He's running to a band. He's
a family of ducks.
A family of ducks. He's like, sometimes you just can't get rid of a bomb.
Yeah.
There's also the great line. It's like, who bought the sub? It's a Mr. P.N. Gwynn. The Penguin? You sold a nuclear sub to the Penguin?
It's funny.
That's one of the first shows that I ever watched where my brother and I mean, I was probably way more into it than him, but I started recognizing that the villains were people that were famous for other things.
Yes.
Because the thing is, I was young, I was, less than 10 when I was watching some of these. And so, I'm not going to necessarily get it, but I just remember I saw when Vincent Price comes on as Egghead.
Yes.
And I think it was maybe
God,
2
yes.
episodes total. But I was just like, wait a minute. I recognized his voice, which I have a weird thing with voices. I recognized his voice from the Thriller video.
Yes, and his voice is so distinctive as well.
Because his voice is very distinctive. And I was like, I know this guy. And so he wasn't scary to me.
Oh, exactly, Batman.
And there were a lot of,
You're gonna end
for
up
me,
with
I had a
egg
lot
on
of
your
weird
face.
voice things. Like I was never afraid of Darth Vader growing up because his voice is, oh my God, what is his name?
James Earl Jones.
James Earl Jones. I'm sorry, I blanked on it. I'm so sorry.
Don't worry about it.
James Earl Jones, and he played a character on a kids show I watched.
Oh.
Square One Television?
Square One TV.
Oh.
He was the captain of MathNet, which was the pretend dragnet show.
Oh wow!
And my brother and I loved him.
well.
And he
I
he
remember
played
it
this like
well.
grumpy police chief. But my brother and I weren't afraid of him. 'Cause he
Morgan
was, you know,
Freeman was
so-
Easy Reader on Electric Company.
I remember
Well,
that.
yeah. But
Okay.
the Electric Company wasn't on when it was
Right.
off the air by the time I was old enough to play. I think my mom put it on for me and was like, "This is
It's like
weird.
reruns.
I'm turning this off."
I
It was
remember
very
actually,
70s, very 70s feeling.
Yeah. But
actually
Square
they
One
originally
TV,
wanted
my brother and I
Orson
were
Welles as
obsessed
Darth
with,
Vader.
and,
His voice?
Darth Vader was
Yeah,
on
they
it.
originally wanted Orson Welles as the voice of Darth Vader.
Yeah, I think they
Wow.
saw some of those commercials he did, and they said, "No, thank you."
Yeah. Well, and if you, I've always wondered if they saw James Earl Jones playing the cult leader in Conan the Barbarian,
Oh.
and if that gave them like the idea to have him audition or come in
Actually,
as Star
Conan
Wars
the Barbarian
after.
came out after.
Oh,
Star
okay.
Wars.
Unfortunate. That ruins my fantasy.
But-
Can I just say his wig in that is one of my favorite wigs of all time. This long, just
It's a good wig.
silky.
That is a
Perfect.
great performance by him.
It's a fabulous performance.
Fabulous
He's terrifying.
performance.
My son.
Actually, one of his first movies he was ever in was Doctor Strangelove. He had a bit part in that.
He did.
That's right, he did. I totally forgot about
He
that.
was one of the guys in the plane. He was
Yeah,
one of the.
Originally, Peter Sellers was supposed to play. He was supposed to play the plane captain. Slim Pickens ended up playing, but I think he faked a leg injury because he just could not get into the character.
He was just like, I already have like 3 other characters I
Yeah.
am right now. I can't do this anymore, and so that's why he faked the leg injury.
Because I remember watching the
Wow,
movie
wow.
for the first time. It's just like, holy mackerel, that's James Earl Jones. You just tell by the voice, And even he, even as a young man, he just, certain people just never really change their looks, and you can just the voice.
is CNN.
There you go. Exactly.
Darth, get that Darth Vader guy to do our promo.
Popular. He got a popular voice.
Sir, could you put your pants on?
I'm
Don't tell me
Ted
what to
Turner.
do. This is
I'm
about-
Captain Planet.
Didn't he do I could be wrong, but didn't he do some sort of like phone company advertisement?
Oh, he
Not
did
so
everything.
Probably did.
Like AT&T or
Oh, yeah.
9X.
This
or-
is 9X.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
something like that. I swear he
He
did.
has-
I'm not remembering
He
what
has
it
an
was.
amazing voice.
He's like,
And he said he was
like
like-
Morgan Freeman.
Well, he said he was a
Freeman
kid from the South who had a stutter growing up too, and so
Are you
that-
kidding? Really? James
I
Earl
get-
Jones?
I
Yep.
guess he had a stammer. Rowan Atkinson's another one who actually has a stammer when he talks,
Mhm.
and you can never tell that when you're listening to him on Blackadder.
Well,
No,
also,
you could never tell.
he did Mr. Bean, which is not a character that talks.
Well, that's true too.
Yeah, there
So-
you go.
Wait, I don't know Mr. Bean. He doesn't talk?
He doesn't
Hello?
talk.
No,
He does a
he's
little
just
bit.
He
totally
makes
silent.
noises.
Oh, wow.
He's
Never
like
could do
Charlie
Mr.
Chaplin.
Oh, I was just
I
thinking
mean, I
that.
think
Yeah.
I've seen certain things with him, but I've never really watched it. Wow.
But yeah,
That just blew my mind.
that's blew your mind.
I didn't know that at all.
But yeah, so going back to my earlier point, like, I talk to kids nowadays, or the kids that I interacted with, and they would all say, yeah, I'm really watching more Marvel stuff. And Marvel, the fact that they put out like 24 movies in the last 10 years,
It is Disney.
well, the fact that they're consistent too, like to actually have the same level of consistency throughout is pretty impressive, considering like you take a look at the James Bond franchise and that has like maybe about the same amount of movies, but it's more like they got like 5 or 6 people that have played Bond. They've had different eras of Bond and everything else like that. But to have like characters like Ant-Man to have their own movie and a sequel to boot, you know?
Right, and it is charming. They pull off something that I think's been uneven in Star Wars, even though I've been giving Star Wars a lot of grace over the years. I sort of
Yeah.
was like, I was drinking the haterade for those prequels like so hard as an adult.
Oh yeah, I know.
And then I sort of just was like, you know what? They are bad, and there are these problems. We could all sit here and list what our problems are.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure. But at the same time, like, well, that's not for me. It is for kids.
It's nerd
but
therapy.
It's nerd therapy. It is nerd therapy. And what I was going to say
Therapy?
Therapy. Yeah, they're not consistent because they've gone through so many hands, but Marvel does the thing that the best Star Wars movies do, in my opinion, which is mixing action and a little bit of drama and a little bit of romance and humor and pulling it off. It's not easy. That's really, really, really hard to do. And yet they're consistently able to do it.
And not only that, they also are the masters of setup and payoff. Because they'll set something up in a previous movie, maybe 2-3 movies before, and then boom, there's the movie that comes up. Because I remember, like, you listen to, like, I remember just being in Endgame, and, like, you hear, like, you know, Falcon over the radio saying, "On your left," and everybody's like, "Oh my God!" And, like, the whole
I remember
scene
the cheering
just
in the
opened
film.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like being
People
at a
started
football
applauding
game.
in the theater. I was one of them.
There's only been 2 times I've actually been in the theater where, like, there was applause and people freaking out in the theater. The first one was when I went to see Independence Day, and everybody in the theater was a packed theater, and everybody was freaking out at the president's speech, going, "Yeah, we're gonna kick ass in America," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" Everybody's like laughing and like going, "Yeah!" And then of course Endgame, which was just like, it's been building since Iron Man. You know, everybody's been waiting for Rogers to say, "Avengers Assemble," and here it was. And boom, it was just such a huge payoff. That whole movie was such a huge payoff. But
I
that's
actually just caught up with Endgame, like in the past, like 2 weeks. I had watched it up to that point, and I just finally told my husband, I was like, I have to watch all these movies. And I watched that, and I watched Captain Marvel, and another one to basically catch me up to speed at this point.
Yeah.
I had seen Black Panther.
Great movie.
Oh, that's
But
pretty good.
but I don't know. I mean, the first time you saw Iron Man, I mean, that's just life changing.
It was unexpected because it wasn't like a top tier Marvel character. It wasn't like the X-Men or Spider-Man, or I'm trying to think of other ones, but they've been able to take the characters Disney had that Marvel didn't sell to Fox or Sony, and they were able to make top tier characters out of them. Iron Man was always a great character, but he wasn't a Spider-Man. But they, through Robert Downey Jr., they made him, a marquee character. Captain America was always a great character, but it was never like, again, I remember the 90s, it was like mutant, X-Men, everything, this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah.
They were able to take those characters who were, like sort of, I don't want to say the leftover characters, but the characters that you wouldn't expect to be, like the cinematic marquee characters, and made them the stars. I mean, you have Chris Evans, who grew up like a couple towns over from where we live right now, lighting up
one
the
of
screen.
one of my old friends went to high school with him.
Oh, no fooling.
They graduated together. Apparently, he was a giant dick.
Oh, that's
He
too
was
bad.
popular and snotty, and he played football, and he made fun of anyone who
You
was
mean a
different.
Hollywood star is a jerk?
Gosh
Yeah.
darn it. Well,
I know.
if he
Shucks.
was always that handsome, and if you're that handsome through high school, it can turn
Yeah.
you into a
I'm
jerk.
glad
It
they-
doesn't always.
I'm
but
glad they cast a
it's
football player
unfortunate.
as Captain America, though. That feels exactly right, though.
I mean,
Wait,
Truth.
he was a he was a football player.
Did you say that, Lisa?
I think that's what he told me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
she's like,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's family, so but okay, all right.
Oh, you said he was a jock. I didn't.
Yeah.
Oh my
I didn't
gosh.
know.
Actually, can we just acknowledge that the biggest gatekeepers in the world are professional sports fans?
Yes.
I'll agree
Are
with
they?
that
Do you
one.
think so? You think so?
Yeah, I do. It's particularly like college football and baseball. in my
Tell me
experience.
why that. What's the? I thought it was more about like I avoid sports, but like to the nth degree.
I
try to run
consider
away from
myself
them.
more of a casual fan of sports, but
Okay, fair
I
enough.
would simply say that I like whenever anybody like freaks out about like me wearing like a t-shirt with a Star Trek logo on it, I'm like, well, you're wearing a Patriot shirt, you know. Are you working with the team? Are you on the field every Sunday?
Are you a quarterback?
Are you one of those linemen or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
You
Are
go
you
for
a
a home
tight end?
run?
Oh yeah, you like the Patriots, huh? Yeah. Did you fight in the American Revolution, eh? Did you? Did you fight? Did you carry the football over the line and defeat the British?
Did you give John Did you give John Hancock a hand?
Yeah. Did you write the Star Spangled Banner? I
Did
didn't
you?
think so.
But I think
Sure
it's
did not.
it's sort of like that. The funny thing about it, obviously, is that how much things have changed. I don't know if anybody's really watched the 21 Jump Street remake. I actually think it's one of my favorite remakes of all time because they make fun of like the changes in high school since we were in high school, and it's Jonah Hill and what was the other guy? God darn it!
Oh, Channing Tatum.
Yeah, Channing Tatum. And so
Yes.
they're basically going in undercover. And
Yes.
so like Channing Tatum is like, oh, I'm going to be the jock. I'm going to be the cool guy. Everybody's going to like me, blah, blah, blah. Then he goes in and like everybody's like, you're a jerk. We don't like you. And like he's like with all the jerks, it's like he goes back to Ice Cube and he's like, yeah, this is totally unnatural. Something's wrong here. Something's wrong here. You know?
Have you noticed that with the kids that you work with, that sort of toxic popular kid thing is flipped with those kids?
It has.
It has.
It really has.
That's
I think
great,
that
actually.
I get a lot of
Would have
chance.
lived in different times.
I know.
Gosh darn it.
I know. Well, I mean, you know, we live in a day and age, obviously, where there's a lot more inclusivity. I worked with kids that were like LGBTQ, and I worked with kids that were like, you know, my daughter's also identifies with that. And, you know, it's certainly a different perspective. And I'm so glad and thankful that they're living in this time rather than when I grew up. Because,
Oh, God.
I mean, dude, I'm dressed up like Indiana Jones for Christ's sake. You know,
Small town USA.
I'd get my ass handed to me by the football team, for Christ's sake. They'd be running at me and they'd be throwing rocks at me like, hey, here's your boulders. You know?
Right.
I'm curious too, if you guys have an opinion about the rise in popularity of nerddom with a correlation of gatekeeping. Because I feel like I was thinking about the subject from earlier when we mentioned it, and I was like, I feel like that there were some people who were identified as nerds and went through all of the trauma of being a nerd and like having to like get picked on and whatever that might be in order to embrace their fandom. And then suddenly like things like Marvel happens and becoming more interested in genre films and like internet culture and all these
Becoming more socially acceptable.
Yeah.
Yes,
and then you have people
absolutely.
coming in, and then these people that kind of fought in a weird way, you know, like had to deal with being picked on for it.
Yeah.
Like,
No,
I mean, I
you
consider
have to do
myself,
it.
yeah, I consider myself like, you know, a veteran of World War nerd myself.
Yeah.
Because that's pretty
Yeah.
much it. I mean, I grew up and I saw Metropolis when I was like 10. I mean,
Oh, wow.
crying out loud.
Nice.
You know, I was way into sci-fi back then, and you know, I consider myself more of a curator of knowledge and experience and stuff. So whenever I go to comic conventions, it's great that you can meet up with people and you can kind of like, you know, see other people that are of my age. I think that the idea that I like, there's this thing about ownership, you know, like there's this thing where people are like, well, I'm a true fan and blah, 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 but I don't really identify with that. There are going to always be flaws with particular genre projects. You know, they're going to be parts of a franchise. They're going to be good, and they're going to be parts of their franchise. They're going to be bad. You know, that's just the way Hollywood is.
Yeah.
And I think that ownership is just something we don't have. It just gets passed on to the next generation. Like one of the things I made an example of last time I talked to Bret was I gave an example of a character and I just said, describe him to me and just tell me who the character is. And I said, he lives in a house. He's very rich. He's opulent, but he has a secret lair under his building, under his house. He goes out, wears a black suit, and he fights crime and corruption. Who is he? And Bret said,
Zorro?
you said, You said Batman first.
I think, yeah, that's right.
And then I said, no, I said, I'm talking about Zorro too. Because Zorro is another character who's exactly the same as Batman. He was just pretty much a copy of Batman. But
Batman was the copy of Zorro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Batman
They're
was
all just copying the Scarlet Pimpernel.
That's true too, yes.
Right, they are copying the Scarlet Pimpernel.
But the thing about it is, you don't see a lot of people dressing up like Zorro going to conventions, because there isn't anybody to really pass that on,
I did like the Antonio Banderas movie. I thought that was a lot of fun.
That too.
It was a lot of fun. That was a fun movie.
The problem obviously is that now he's a public domain character, and studios don't want to invest in a character that's public domain, because if they make a version of Zorro that's popular, somebody else can copy Zorro and do the exact same thing, and then, oh geez, now I got to compete with these guys. So
I found this out recently that in Italy you can't copyright the name of a movie, or some variation of that.
Yep.
And so what happens is when Zombie, the Fellini film, not Fellini,
Argento?
God. No, not Argento. Fulci film Zombie.
There's a lot of those guys over there.
Yeah. He that's actually was released as Night of the Living Dead 2. And
really?
Yes, it was.
And then
I remember that now.
And then subsequently there were 2 other zombie films that were not made, that had nothing to do with that guy.
Yep.
Or that direction or whatever. I can't believe I'm spacing on his name. Now it's Argento stuck in my head.
You said Fulci.
It's Fulci.
Yeah,
And I'm like, was it Fulci? Was it? But
well, so that some horror fan will nail you to the wall if they
No,
find out it was the wrong
I
one.
can't get that wrong.
Well, I mean,
How dare you.
that's why I say it's better to be a curator than an owner, because that way you can represent the interest and get other people interested in it yourself. I mean, all this stuff about it, like, oh, that's not real Star Trek, that's not real this, that's not real that. No, it's real for whoever has it at the time. Now, obviously, I don't think of the people who are in charge of Star Wars right now as creators. I think of them more as curators, but they're doing a really kind of a crappy job. But that's my opinion, and it's all up to different points of view. But that's just how it is. I think that fandom stays alive when you have investment in it and you try to share it, the best parts of it that you can.
On behalf of Andrew, Lisa, Brian, and Ainsley, thank you for listening to the Mental Suppository. We will continue part 2 of our discussion next week. Until then, this is Bret Herholtz saying,
I knew I'd disturb you.
The Mental Suppository has been produced by Bret Herholtz and Jamie Billings and distributed by M the Media Project. Theme music generously donated by Mr. B, the Gentleman Rhymer. Visit his webpage at gentlemanrhymer.com. We would love to hear from our fans. Email us at mentalsuppository@gmail.com.